I want to begin, before we start our movie, I want to share a couple of things with you just as some background, because going to Ethiopia really was a trip of a lifetime, something that we have been praying for, myself and Monica, for quite some time. For years and years and years, people have always rolled up on Monica and asked her where she's from. They assume that she is from Ethiopia all the time. She did her DNA, and guess what? Found out she was from that region of the world. And so when she was going back home to Ethiopia, Ethiopia is a land of mystery, ancient empires, and one of the oldest, if not the oldest, branch of Christianity. The people, the cities, the villages allow a person to travel back in time to a simpler, sacred time period where ritual and respect for creation were the norm and not the exception. 2 years ago, we started planning for this trip to Ethiopia. But the genesis of this journey really began before we put pen to paper to contact our tour operator. I was a student at Morehouse College, and after graduating, my father took a group of about 30 pilgrims to Egypt. I was very excited because in college I had been studying some tremendous scholars, Cheikh Anta Diop, John Jackson, Chancellor Williams, just to name a few, Dr. Ben, and a wonderful scholar by the name of Ivan van Sertima, who put together what was called the Nile Valley Conference. They were studying ancient Egypt and Nubia and Ethiopia. And they did that conference at Morehouse, and many of the papers were at Morehouse, and I had a wonderful teacher by the name of Aaron Parker who shared that information with the students, and I just became hooked at that moment. And so after graduation, went to Egypt, and I kept hearing about Nubia, Kush, and Ethiopia everywhere we went. It's one thing to read about it, it's another thing to actually go and visit. And part of the challenge for those of African descent in America is that you can read all day about our ancient history, but the media gives you a myth even though you have read the truth. Let me say it again. The media gives you a myth even though you may have read the truth. So there's nothing like taking a tour and having the opportunity to truly have the myth wiped from your memory completely, even though you intellectually understand the information, but there's nothing like having an image connect with the literature. Having an image connect with the literature. And so that is really the genesis. We had been praying, myself and Monica, for years to have the opportunity to be able to go to Ethiopia, and then we put out the call 2 years ago. And it first started slow, but then all of a sudden, more people started signing up, and we were teaching here at Trinity over and over again about Ethiopia, doing Bible study, talking about Ethiopia, sharing the myths about the myths that have been shared from Hollywood with the truth, what is written biblically and historically. And so we ended up with 115 people who signed up, 115, and then 95 who made their way to Ethiopia. And it was an absolutely magical trip. Now, since I have our tour leader here, so you all will know I am not just using some preacher-type hyperbole, that we were told when we went to Ethiopia, we were the largest African-American group to come over to Ethiopia. They haven't seen that many brothers and sisters roll up over to Ethiopia from America. We had a tremendous time, and that was very exciting. To us. And we spent several weeks there. Every morning we had prayer time, we had lectures, and in the evening we just had some tremendous things that I will not be able to share fully. But what we did is we created a very small little video that we want to show you to give you some information about our trip. From that video, we'll then go back and we'll share some more details about our trip. But this is primarily images. But there is one piece in here that I want you to see I'm so very excited about. While I was there, I took my iPhone and I recorded sounds of Ethiopia. And we're going to create a podcast It'll be out very soon. It'll be loaded up on Facebook. You'll be able to get on Twitter, iTunes, all of that. It is free, where you will have these sounds of Ethiopia. But in the film, the little movie that we created, just the images, we have some of those sounds. And one that I want you to hear is we went to a prayer meeting. We were up in Lalibela, and we walked in on a prayer meeting. It was during the celebration, I believe it was, of the Archangel Gabriel, that we were there for the celebration of the Archangel Gabriel. And when we heard the music they were singing, we thought we were in a church in Itabena, Mississippi. I am not making this up. It sounded just like common meter hymns. So what we did, the media team did, is they took the music from Ethiopia and then put it right next to a common meter hymn, so you can hear how the sounds are almost identical. And so that'll be a part of the little video. It's a very short video, and then we're going to do some teaching after that. And so I'm very excited. Appreciate our multimedia department. This is just a few of the images of Ethiopia.
And this would be the point where where I'm going to give you a choice. So to access the next church, we have a tunnel, a dark tunnel. Darkness, this is the best examples of being in darkness. So it will take about 4 to 5 minutes through the tunnel to go to the next church, which is...
Can you use your light?
Yeah, I will tell you. To go to the next church, which is Markarios. And there is another way, which you can follow one of our shoemen to go to the other end, and we can meet on the same point. After finishing the tunnel, there is 8, maybe 7 steps of ladder, wooden ladder, to go out and to go into the church. So that would be an experience, but don't force yourself. Those who don't want to do it, you can follow the shoeman. Those who want to do the adventure will go through it for about 2 minutes. You'll not lighten this one. So we'll go through the darkness. We will experience at some point, but at some point, either we may use our light or our force, if you're frightened. If not, then we can finish it until we reach to the last point, okay? It's a bit tight with
I wanted to go through the photos first. So first of all, the music that you heard is from 64 and 74 Ethiopian jazz. You can get that on iTunes, download that. It's a great collection of Ethiopian jazz. But we're going to go back through some of the photos again and just give you some context and some of the few stories behind everything. I'm going to ask that Daryl would start that back again because they did it in iMovie. So we're going to go, that's good, thank you very much. And so here we are in Addis, and right here, the picture that you see here is the African Union. The African Union is where all of the heads of state of Africa meet. That seat of the African Union is in Addis Ababa. This building was built for $200 million, and it was built by Teddy, who none other than the People's Republic of China, right? The People's Republic, yeah, there we go. They built the whole thing. They said, here, you all can have that as long as we have access to all the African heads of state. And so that's a whole different conversation about how China is reinvesting in Africa. We saw people from China everywhere, and they are putting major dollars, not just in Ethiopia, but in just about every country in Africa where there are precious resources. So the African Union, this is the African Union building. Let's go to the next photo. It's a picture of the African Union emblem. And here we have all of our tour guides right here, these wonderful brothers who were phenomenal. We're so glad that Teddy is with us. And they presented my father, Dr. Otis Moss Jr., with a very special honor and present as an elder. And we were getting on the plane on our way to leave Ethiopia. But I have to say this, and I think that everybody will agree with me, that these brothers were absolutely the finest tour guides I have ever experienced in my life. Just incredibly knowledgeable, caring, just took care of everybody in such an incredible way, amazingly efficient in taking care of every aspect of the tour. So if you are doing a tour to Ethiopia, I just have to say you have to have one of these brothers right here. They were major. Let's go to the next one. This is where you can keep going, but this is where we stayed. This was the Sheraton in Addis Ababa. It was a very nice hotel, 5-star hotel, about 5 different wonderful restaurants in there, overlooks Addis. It was we enjoyed it. But here, we were up, what was the name of the mountain here that we were, could you tell us? Teddy, come on up here. You got to help me. There we go.
So this is Mountain Toto, which is the highest point in Addis. And we were about 3,200, I think, when we have the top view of Addis.
Translation, that's 7,150 feet above sea level.
But many of them find it a bit difficult to walk on the top. So quite a few of them have a nice picture that you see here. We didn't tell them, actually. It was a surprise. So we just take them to the mountain.
But who also trains up here?
This is a point where the great athletes of Ethiopia, if you want to do sports of athletics, this is a good point to be there. We have great athletes who won all the Olympians, like the great Haile Gebrselassie and Abebe Bikila. Maybe you heard about him. So this is a home for the great runners of the world, actually. So that's Mountain Toto, and this you have seen the ladies actually carrying huge bundles of woods. That's for firewoods. It's about 9 kilometers from the bottom to the top, and they will do it twice in a day. So about 18 kilometers in a day. So that's also one of the scenes that you have seen. But if the pictures are going like this, and I'm going to do it like it's going to be a tour here.
Yeah, there you go.
So Oh, this is this was on the first day. That's for Ethiopian meal, which was served for everybody, and we have different shows. That was a cultural show, and this is a dance from the northern part of Ethiopia, which is Aksum. So they have a very unique dance. We have shoulder dancings, which is quite common to the northern part of Ethiopia.
That Teddy had mentioned. Now, he said that the northern dancers dance with their shoulders. Southern dancers dance with their hips. So if you're from the north, you dance with your shoulders. If you're from the south, you dance. You can tell where people are from by how they dance.
And this was the first church experience in Addis. And this is an octagonal church, which is Church of St. George. So each day in Ethiopia, we have 13 days of the men's. So each day is dedicated for certain angels or archangels or saints. So 23rd of Ethiopian calendar is dedicated for St. George. And we have seen a beautiful mosaic paintings and some of the collections in the museum. So you can see people are praying on the wall, blessing themselves with God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And you'll see them even kissing the wall, kissing the ground. It's quite touching when you come to the church to Ethiopia. So that was quite an experience for the first day.
And to add to that, what's interesting is the church was closed. So you see people, church is closed, and people are always at church praying. Doesn't make a difference what time it is. People are there to worship. Church, they're not looking for, is it 7 o'clock? Is it, did the preacher preach too long? Whatnot. They said, church is closed, we're going to worship. And so that was a very fascinating thing that everywhere in the country, it is a very, very, very spiritual country. And so here you have, church is closed, and there are people all over the place. There's a plaza, you can't see it here, but they're all over the place and they're praying. And they're worshiping, even though church is closed, which was it just blew our minds that all these people were at church and the church was closed.
This is also a point where was crowned as King of Kings of Ethiopia. He was the last emperor of the Solomonic dynasty. So we have seen where he sat and where he has got the crown. So this is also historical. And you have also mentioned about the Battle of Adwa. So we have a tabot, or the replica of the Ark. So each church is supposed to have at least one replica of the Ark of the Covenant. So when Menelik marched to the front points, to Adwa, it took about 3 months. They walk all the way from Addis to the front side. It's closer to Eritrea. So they carried the replica of the Ark of St. George. And that's why they defeated the Italian. So when they returned back to Addis, then they built the new buildings which you have seen here. So that makes it quite historical as well. And this is the Trinity Church, the Trinity Church that you have. So Trinity, we have Trinity churches, which is celebrated on the 7th of Ethiopian calendar. Each month of the 7th day of our month is dedicated for Trinity. And that's also the secrets of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So the Trinity usually depicted with the paintings of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit with equal status. So that's one of the core points of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And this is also a private chapel for King Haile Selassie. There is a crypt, and there is also a tomb of himself and his family. And this is also a dedication for the British military personnel who helped Ethiopia back in 1935 when they defeated the Italians again. So you have also a statue for it. And that was also a beautiful church with a stained glass of the Old Testament and the New Testament as well. And this is a point where we have a beautiful praying, if you remember. There was a tabot was revealed, and there was a beautiful singing, and a beautiful chanting was going on. That was fortunate as well. And this is Bahar Dar. I'm going to take over everything now.
We are in Bahadar. This is part of the market. You can keep going. Part of the market. What is interesting is the market was an extraordinary experience of the senses. I've never in my life seen so many people in such an area. There was a running joke that we had to say that if you want to learn how to drive in Ethiopia, they just send you to the market and say, here, if you can get out of there within 2 hours, you get your license. So you imagine walking down a street as wide as 95th Street, but seeing 10,000 people coming at you. Everybody knew where they were going, things on their head, selling things. Everybody knew exactly where to go. So I just want to show this little interesting story. We were going around the market, and we had to go through one of these tight areas. Just freeze that, Daryl. One of these little tight areas in the market. And the group we were with, with everybody, we broke up in small groups. They went ahead of us, and we had to let some people pass. When we came around the turn, we didn't see our group. And so there was our wonderful adopted daughter, Brianna Harris, and she immediately said, no, are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious? I said, calm down, everybody. I'm going to go and look, because I was nervous too. I was like, I'm in Ethiopia. I don't know where I am. We are in the middle of the market of Bahadar. But I said, as long as I can get to a street, I can get back to the hotel. But thankfully, this gentleman right here found us. Otherwise, we would still be in that market, walking around at this moment, not knowing where we are. I love Teddy, because if I had taken a wrong turn, we would have been in trouble. I mean, it's massive. And this was not the largest market. The largest market in all of Africa is in Addis. We were in a smaller market, and it was still, I've never been in a place as massive, fascinating. I mean, selling everything. Matter of fact, Monica, you want to tell your honey story?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the honey story. So Ethiopia has amazing honey. And now I had my American sensibilities at that moment, or maybe non-sensibilities, I should say. And so we went and I saw honey. I'm like, oh, I want to get some honey. However, I'm thinking, oh, they'll probably have little jars of honey. Wouldn't you think they'd have little jars of honey? So they pull out and they said, I could get a liter of honey. I'm like, no, that's way too much. And I'm trying to say, I want like, less, please less. I don't need that much. So what I was unprepared for was how they got the honey out. They had vats of honey. And the man stuck his hand down in the vat. And he scooped it out and put it and honey is sticky. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Because the man stuck his hand in there. But I know, because I love healthy eating. I know that honey is naturally antimicrobial. So I'm thinking, I'm gonna be okay. And then he said.
And then Monica says, you wanna try some, baby?
Well, I did, so we tried some. And it was so funny. So here we are, we're kind of early in the trip, and I was trying to communicate and didn't speak the language, and I was, trying to get the amount down smaller and smaller. And so I'm sitting here talking to the lady in the stall. Now, the man has gotten the honey. I have my honey. I paid for the honey. And I said to her in English, I said, wow, you look so much like my aunt. And she said, oh, she speaks to me in English at this point. And I don't remember how she said it, but what she said was, I'm from Jamaica. And I'm like, well, why? And I'm like, well, why did you make me work so hard with this honey? So that's my honey story.
And we have just more and more and more of those wonderful stories as we're there. You can continue on, Daryl. And again, the market really was an amazing thing to witness and to walk through. We did drive through a market. That was a whole nother interesting experience. But here we are right outside of Bahadar. Right, freeze this. We walked across a wedding shoot. So they were outside, this is outside the city of Bahadar, and there was a wonderful wedding shoot that was happening of this couple that was getting married. So they were just preparing, doing their wedding pictures. So any ideas of anybody who's getting married, you may want to go to Ethiopia to do a wonderful wedding shoot. But it was really beautiful to run up on this family that was shooting for the wedding. But what you're about to see, several of the pictures that we're about to show, this is right outside of Bahadar. One of the things that we talked about in Bible study, we talked about the Blue Nile. We talked about the Garden of Eden. Well, you're about to see it. You're about to see the photo. So let's roll this. This is actually where you are, some of the sequence of pictures that we're about to see. And there's our brother. He's out there. He's happy. He's getting married. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. And this is outside of Bahadar. We were outside of Bahadar. One of the farms, but there's going to be a sequence of about 3, and this is the thumb of God right here. And many of the mountains you have monasteries, and again, this is outside of Bahadar, but we want to get to another sequence of pictures that I want to. And this was a funeral processional that we went across while we were in right outside of Bahadar. But here we are outside of Bahadar. Now we're in the valley near the Blue Nile, where biblically you hear the Paishan and the Gihan. This is a portion of it right here. This is the Garden of Eden. This is where humanity started. Now these great falls, there is a dam, and the reason the falls are not as strong is because the water is dammed up. And we were at the beginning of the rainy season, but Teddy, if I'm correct, that after the rainy season, that entire valley fills up with water, and the water then turns blue and white. And that is in September. And that's how we got across the river after we finished walking through on these nice little wonderful boats that we were waiting for. And thank you, Michael Hurd, for your photos. But freeze this picture right here. So, in order to begin our journey into the garden of what we call the Garden of Eden, to the Blue Nile, we have to walk across this bridge that was built by the Portuguese, was it in the 16th century? In the 16th century. Beautiful bridge, by the way. But this is where unique things started. If I may have this staff over here, Carol, really quickly. So, we get off, this is another nice little story. We get off of the buses, all of us. The town is excited because they're seeing all these black folk, and then all the kids show up, and they are just as sweet as they can be. Gorgeous, just wonderful, so kind. They say, hello, how are you? Are you doing well? And then they say, would you like to buy? And there's this wonderful young little girl. She was as cute as she could be. And she said, you need a walking stick, sir. You know, that you're going hiking. She's like, you need a hiking stick? We get you a hiking stick. And so she gave, well, this is a prayer stick, but she gave me a little walking stick. And I said, thank you. And she said, that'll be $4. And I was like, all right, gave her the $4. And she said, she walked away. She was as sweet as she could be. And so we had all of these kids following us the whole time. I'm coming back to this stick in a minute, okay? I'm coming back to the stick she gave me. This is a staff, but she gave me a stick. So let's continue on, Daryl. So we walk across this bridge into the valley, and this particular bridge right here, stop right there. This was another wonderful story. As I said, there were children who were following us. And if you notice, this is like a bridge from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, all right? Okay? So as you're walking over it, you can look down, and that's about a good 15 stories down to the river. And so when our friend here decided to walk across the bridge, she was walking by herself. The children saw that she was walking by herself, and they all ran up behind her. You heard her scream across the valley. And all the children were trying to do, they were trying to just help her across. They said, do not be afraid. We have you. We've got you. And so if you can see the expression on her face, she is praying right now, Lord, order my steps. So that was just a great moment. And everybody, we were just on the floor. I mean, we were on the ground at that point, just dying. This gives you an idea of the bridge that we're talking about. We crossed this bridge which again is that valley, which is the Garden of Eden, onto the other side and make our way across the boats back to the buses. Let's stop here. Hello, Miss June, the purple lady. So as I told you, I was given this walking stick, this staff, by this wonderful little girl, and she asked for $4. As soon as I was about to get on the bus, she took it back. I said, "What you doing?" She said, "Oh no, this is a rental." I said, "I am not mad at you. I am not mad at you." And she was so cute. And she knew it too. She's like, "This is a rental." She walked away. Like, all right. So we just had to continue on. So here we are. This is the hotel that we were in that actually was designed by a woman. And this is the market that we were talking about that, we got lost in for a few moments. Every food, every smell. I mean, you would see people with chickens in one hand and maybe carrying a toilet in the other hand. Because again, nothing goes to waste because of recycling, the ingenuity of the community, not only in Bahadar, but all across Ethiopia. And here we had to take a picture of the barbershop. So if you can imagine that you're in this market, there are small stalls everywhere. We couldn't figure out, where we were. We were so thankful that we were next to Teddy. Everybody was looking for Teddy, making sure we would not lose Teddy. And we come into these small little crevices and we roll up on this barbershop. But you can't see it in this picture. The next stall over, there was a little doorway. I stuck my head in the doorway. There were 20 sisters in there getting their hair done. It was the beauty salon right next to the barbershop. It was fantastic. It was just fantastic. And of course, everybody's incredibly friendly. Let's continue on. And then Gondar. Gondar was absolutely beautiful. Teddy, you want to share with us a little bit about this palace that we're seeing here?
So I'm going to ask for payment now. Gondar is, we have about 11 World Heritage Sites which are registered by UNESCO. So Gondar is one of it. So we have about 6 castles. It's a castle compound, which is a medieval period of the late 18th century. So what we have seen on the first one is, which you have seen it right there, is the largest one, which was built by King Fasilides. So it's one of the largest castle here. So we were able to go to the first one on the first floor. And there is a beautiful structure, which is actually influenced by the Portuguese and Indians as well. And this was for the first time. We have quite stages of civilization, starting from one big monolithic granite stone and basalts as well. And they carve tombs and different structures. And later on, they start to use cement. So this is a period where they start to have cement to have blocks of stones together. And they have archives as well. And these are the living compounds of the realities of the Gondarian period. And it was the most peaceful period in the Ethiopian history. So that's why the advancements of constructions of castle and the culture reached to the climax. So that's one of the important points of the Ethiopian civilization. This one is the last bit, actually, which was done by the lady, which was called Mintawab. And I was also telling the story. She was also the reason for Ethiopia to be disintegrated until 1855, for about a few hundred years. But she has done a beautiful compounds of her own. Then she left this one and she has a separate compound to the other sides of Gondar. So that's a very unique structure and aspects of the Gondarian period. And this is the marvelous paintings. And this is the Trinity Church. So you have a very unique name to the unique places in Ethiopia as well. So these are the angels. So it's on the roof parts of one of the beautiful churches of the Gondarian period. And there are stories of the Bible and stories of the Ethiopian aspects of their own religion. But the very unique aspects of it is angels, and it has a reason as well. So they are looking from the top. So they are guardians. So they are protecting us. So that's why the reason behind. The paintings are in the late 50s, 60s, and 18th century, with a different influence through time. So all are Ethiopian ways of paintings, with a very circular face, and more or less a dark face that you'd see. But we still claim that Christ is belonging to the families of the Jewish community. But the angels, the archangels, and the other aspects of the paintings are usually Ethiopianized, more of African ways of paintings can be seen there. And this is the base of King Fasilides. So if you are coming to Ethiopia in January 18, we have a huge festival, one of the best festivals that you'd see in Ethiopia. And this is a center of baptization. So there is a commemoration given for Christ was baptized by John the Baptist. So this is a center where they're going to celebrate in Gondar. That's in January 18. So we have also a chance to walk around and to see the compound. So that makes Gondar to be the center of civilization during the medieval periods of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Teddy. And so Gondar was just absolutely beautiful. And in the morning, you freeze that. What was so powerful for me was that every morning at about 5 a.m. in Gondar, you would hear the call of the minaret. That was the call, a Muslim call to prayer. But at the same time, at 5 a.m., you would also hear the Ethiopian Orthodox Christian Church call to prayer at the same time. So you would hear the Christian call, you would hear the Muslim call in Gondar, and the conflicts that we would normally in the modern world associate between Christian and Muslim is not and has not operated at the level in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian civilization and culture, because of a merchant culture, because of all of these years of, let me break it down, I wish I had a map up here, that present Ethiopia is not ancient Ethiopia. Ethiopia used to be what we would call Djibouti, Eritrea, Somalia, into Yemen, into Sudan, parts of Kenya. The empire stretched depending upon which particular dynasty, which particular community. And since it was the center for gold and frankincense and myrrh, they built relationships with communities around the world. So it was not advantageous. It was not a part of the culture to try and dominate, destroy. That's Roman. Military culture tries to dominate. Merchant cultures try to understand. Because if I'm a merchant, I want to sell you what I got. So it behooves me to build relationships. And so when you read more about the ancient Ethiopian culture, you find out that the world was coming to Ethiopia. So when you read your Bible about 3 wise men, there is scholars that say, well, obviously, at least one of them came from Ethiopia because he was bringing frankincense. And so the world would go to Ethiopia for frankincense. So there was the belief that he came from Ethiopia. So he came from Ethiopia. So let's continue on. So that's Gondar. It's a beautiful view. We had a great hotel, too, in Gondar. And they made the best honey wine. Lord have mercy. You know, I'm not a wine drinker at all. But that honey wine, they got to give it to you in little doses. Because it's so sweet, you will stumble out of the restaurant if you do not take it in little doses. It was made. They made it up fresh for us right there. You know, it was not in a bottle. They just made the wine up. It was great. So Lalibela, this was incredible. This is the one tour. We had to break up in smaller groups, and so that was the group they were part of. And I love this one, the Again Obama gift shop. As soon as we got to Lalibela, they said again. They were excited, and that was the first thing that people would tell you. They said, They said, "You from America?" Like, yeah. They said, "Obama." And then someone said this. They said, "Trump." You're like, wow, wow, okay. So the again Obama gift shop. This is in Lalibela. Now, stop here. When Lalibela was at the highest elevation, 8,500 feet above sea level. And if you can imagine, as we get off the plane and we have to drive up this mountain range, and we are driving. Has anybody ever seen the very beginning of the movie The Shining? You know how they're driving in the mountains and have that ominous music? That's exactly what it was like going to Lalibela. So here we are driving in these little these buses, and you know, Teddy and his crew, they're cool. They've been there a million times. There were folks on our bus. They were nervous. Because remember, there are no railings. And there was a truck coming toward us. Coming around the curve, we're going up, trucks coming down to us. Oh, they were nervous. They were incredibly nervous. So was I. On our way up there, but I just prayed the whole way. I said, this is the holy city. So Lalibela is named after King Lalibela. King Lalibela, when he was born, there was a sign of his birth in reference to a swarm of bees, which indicated that he would be someone great. The story goes that his brother was jealous of him and poisoned Lalibela. Poisoned him, and he died. And while he was unconscious, he had a vision, or he ascended to heaven, and Christ told him that he is to build churches in his name. He was resuscitated. He becomes king, King Lalibela. And since Ethiopia was Christian, you do know Ethiopia is the oldest Christian nation on the planet, period. Let me say it again. It's the oldest Christian nation on the planet, period. No one else. Don't say, well, what about Rome? They came later. And before they were Christian, they were Jewish. They were Jewish. They practiced Judaism also. So Lalibela knew that his people were practitioners of this faith, and every good Jew and every good Christian had to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Well, not everybody could make it to Jerusalem. So Lalibela carved 11 churches into the rocks, into the side, into mountains. One statement, talking to one person, they were talking about the fact that the reason they were built in the mountains, one, to protect them from attack. Another is that to build the churches in the mountain, which I thought was very fascinating that we heard from someone, Teddy. They said that the churches were already in the mountain. The people just had to find the church and carve out what God had already placed in there. And so that's what we saw in Lalibela, and we had the opportunity to talk to the priests. Now, you do know Ethiopia was never colonized. It was never colonized. The Italians tried twice, as Teddy mentioned about the Battle of Atwa, but they also tried later on and pushed up into Lalibela. One of our groups, we had to, again, break up in smaller groups because not everybody could fit into the churches at the same time. The group my father was with, they had an opportunity to talk with the priest of the church at St. George, which is the grandest of the churches in Lalibela. The priest was the nephew of the priest who was a priest during the time of the Italian occupation, which was during World War II. And he told the story that his uncle, that the Italians had marched to Lalibela. The Italians had asked the priest to denounce Christ because they knew that the power of the civilization, of the country, was in the church. That if they could break the priests, they knew that they could break the will of the people. Well, the priest, he refused. They tied him up and left him outside, tied his hands and feet together, and left him out there for 2 days, just over a log, in a very incredibly uncomfortable position. And the Italians placed dynamite in the churches, knowing that it would be like blowing up the heart of the country by destroying these churches. Now, these are World Heritage sites. These are considered the eighth wonder of the world, these pictures that you're seeing. Because even today, people are still trying to figure out, how did they do it? If you notice, there are no bricks. It's all one piece of stone carved out of a mountain. So the story goes that the Italians placed dynamite in the church at St. George. They were going to blow it up and demonstrate that Mussolini, that the Italians are much more powerful than these Ethiopians. As they were about to blow up the church, this is what the priest told our group. As they're about to blow up the church, a storm arrived, and lightning struck the soldiers who were going to blow up the church. And the Italians left and ain't been back since. So it was a great story. It was a great story that the priest told. So here we had the opportunity, Lalibela, for the priests. And we were blessed by the priest. There is Stephanie. Stephanie Gray is being blessed at that moment by the priest. He came out from behind the Holy of Holies with the Ethiopian cross. And, you kiss the cross, and he blesses you on the back. It was a very powerful, powerful moment. You can continue on. Now, this little pool over here, if I'm correct, Teddy, this was the pool for infertility. This is the infertility pool. So for any sisters who were having challenges having a baby, they would be baptized in this pool right here. And so that we just thought we'd take a nice picture. So this is, I took that picture with Reverend Stacy's organization, Fertility for Colored Girls. This is the ancient version of Fertility for Colored Girls right here. That they had a pool to bless sisters who were having challenges with infertility. Let's continue on. And again, these beautiful, every cross is a little bit different, but here is the church at St. George. Stop it right here. I want you to look here now. You don't see any bricks. This is carved, and you really cannot see the power of the church unless you are flying by helicopter. Absolutely gorgeous architecture. One piece of stone, monolithic, gorgeous inside and outside, but do you notice the precision? Now, Teddy, this is 1100 AD, is this correct? Yeah. Now, 1100 AD, right here. There are no lasers. There are no modern equipment. It's a chisel, 1100 AD. Now, we saw 11 of these churches. There are 126 in Ethiopia. If you go to Aksum, there are even more in the mountains that people can't even get to. But here are the ones that are the most popular ones that people visit at Lalibela, which was just absolutely tremendous. Continue on. And there I am, this optical illusion, looking like it's small. But again, there's Teddy right there in his hat. But here, the priest, again, just having the opportunity to have the conversation, you can see the beauty in the architecture, which was absolutely stunning. Now, stop here. This is Cody. We have this running joke, Cody in Africa, one of our students with us. Everywhere we went, they said, DJ Khaled, or Rick Ross. Everywhere we went, DJ Khaled or Rick Ross. That was just a running joke. For those of you who didn't laugh, you have no idea who Rick Ross is or DJ Khaled. That's all right. Just ask somebody else. That's what happened everywhere. But here we are at Lalibela. These young men right here, which was wonderful, they waited for us as we went on our tour. And Elijah, and how many people were in there? It was Joshua. Who else was in that game? And Justin were in a wonderful soccer match with a group of wonderful young men in Lalibela. Now, what was funny is they were trying to be cool because we were at 8,500 feet. They were trying to be cool. Once they were finished, those brothers were absolutely spent beyond spent because they didn't realize the altitude and their lung capacity was not set up for 8,500 feet above sea level. They tried to hang though, I gotta give it to them, But they sure did sleep good that night, boy. We can continue on. And here are some Ethiopian boys, Michaela. Yeah, uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, yeah. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Now, here was the story. You heard Teddy's voice on the video, and we had one of the entrances here. Teddy, it was just so powerful what he did. He took us through an entrance. In order to get into the church, we had to be plunged into complete darkness. We went through this tunnel for about 4 minutes, pitch black. And the idea was that you are descending into hell, but then you come out and see the light into heaven. And when you come out, you are there at church. So the process of getting into the church was an act of worship. So I preached about it a few weeks ago, talking about we went through this tunnel. This is what we were talking about. I was the last person in my group because I was the tallest. I'm holding on to Sister Bourgeois' backpack. She's in front of me. And I have my hand up touching the walls. Then as we're walking, we're in pitch black. Then I realize we start descending. Can't see nothing. But this is the thing that blessed me so. I don't think I said it on Sunday when I preached about it. I said, Teddy said, but I couldn't see Teddy. He said, I see the light. And then he passed it to the person behind him. And that person said, Teddy sees the light. And they passed it to the next person, said, Teddy says, we're close to the light. And by the time it got to me, he said, we're near the light. I couldn't see the light. But there was somebody who was ahead of me who already saw the light. So I knew I was going to make it to the light if I kept on moving forward. It was a beautiful thing to have that opportunity, then to come out into the church. We can continue on. So what is interesting is that you walk into the tunnel, but you got to climb out. So in other words, you walk in the darkness, but you climb out into the light. It's easy to get in, it's harder to get out. And so you literally have to climb out of the tunnel. And there you are at the entrance of another beautiful monolithic church in Lalibela. And then this is the outside of one of the churches. If you see this little bridge right here, which is funny, people are outside of church worshiping all the time. And Sister Sharon Coleman just made the funniest remark. She was talking about, if the bridge, she said that bridge is more recent, because they used to just have some logs you had to walk across. And Sharon was just like, I'm just going to be worshiping at home, I'm not walking across the log to worship. So if you can see, freeze this right here. So if you can see, you really can't see, but there is a major drop that goes down. So the churches are protected, and in order to get to the church, you're going to have to go across this bridge to go inside. And when we went inside, that's when we ran into the prayer meeting. And that stunned us. And it was emotional for my father because he thought he was in Troup County, Georgia. Because he said, it sounds like the deacons I heard when I was a child. And they were deacons who were leading the prayer meeting. They were lining out the hymns, and you could hear them. Again, it was like a common meter hymn. It was quite beautiful. I'm going to continue on. And there he is. There's one of the deacons or priests as they are leading. You can see us in the background. We're listening. But these incredible, it was incredibly emotional and moving and spiritual to be in this space. And let me use the staff once again. And they would have these prayer staffs. And these prayer staffs that they would always hold with their left hand, leaning, because they may be in prayer meeting for 2 hours or 3 or 4. As one deacon told us, they even have on certain holidays 10 hours where you're worshiping. And someone said, I ain't going to church for no 10 hours, I know that. And this was the interesting response by one of the people that were just asking questions later on, overheard a question. And the person said, well, do you worship for 10 hours? Isn't that long? And the answer was, if God serves us for 24 hours, 7 days a week, at least one day I could give 10 hours. It was quite moving. It was quite moving. We want to continue on to the next piece. We can move a little bit faster. So this is the prayer meeting. the prayer meeting, continue on in the prayer meeting. We got the prayer meeting. And those are the deacons from Mississippi, the deacons from Alabama, and oh, right here, this is where we had dinner. This was the restaurant we had up on the hill in Lalabelle. Looks like a little spaceship, but we had a really wonderful meal up there. This kind of indoor-outdoor restaurant, which was beautiful. It was just a gorgeous sight to be able to look over the entire city. And here is the coffee ceremony. Teddy, could you explain the coffee ceremony for us?
Before the coffee ceremony, the restaurant that you have seen, and that's called Bain Ababa. It's owned by a Scottish woman and a local guide from Lalibela. So Bain Ababa means flower on a mountain. That's the name of it. Then this is a coffee ceremony. Ethiopia is a home of where coffee is originated from. So we have a place called Kafa, which is in the southwestern part of Ethiopia. So that's the word even coffee, caffeine, all those words are originated from there. So that's one of the reason that we are claiming coffee is originated from Ethiopia. And then we think that it's also transported along the Red Sea to the Arabian world, then expand to the Latin American and to the other parts of the world, and it was introduced as the second most consumed commodity in the world, next to oil. And that's also the backbone of the Ethiopian economy. 85% of the coffee production is coming from the small-scale farmers, which is prevalent in Ethiopia. And we have a very long ceremony that would take about an hour or two, and it has also social values. It's not only consuming the coffee, but there is a social aspects of it, starting from the preparation. So it's exclusively the ladies who are going to do this one, and what they are going to do is they will wash the coffee grain, and it's nicely washed, and there is a plates and the charcoal as well, and it would be roasted nicely. So the lady are going to do that one. Then the pondings, the grinding, would have a message. So people are living in a small community, so you not consume the coffee by yourself as a family. So you should invite your neighbors. So you'll not go to each doors, but by making the sounds of the pondings or the crushing, then you are inviting people, and they will come and they will join you for the coffee ceremony. And that's the point where the family, especially the ladies, are going to discuss their social aspects, their social life. And it will take longer. And there are 3 cups of coffee that you are supposed to consume. And the first one, which is a stronger one, and the medium, and the least one. And there is also a saying to it. So if you are going to miss one of it, because it is for health, wealth, and for children. So if you are going to miss one of it, then you may miss your wealth or child or your health. So you're supposed to take or consume the 3 cups of coffee from it. And if you remember, one of the guide was Afwork. He was also adding cultural aspects of reading the coffee cups. So by the time, it's just on the last point, there is a cultural explanation. There are people who are reading the cups, but you just consume the whole parts of it, and they will read your future. They can tell you what's happening to your family or what's happening to the future. So there is also a cultural aspect to it. So the social value of coffee is quite strong. In the rural parts of Ethiopia, at least twice in a day, they will consume coffee. Early in the morning, that's everybody gathering for breakfast, and they would have coffee. And during the night time, everyone will go to bed together. So they will have also coffee to eat. So if you go to Ethiopia, in any parts of Ethiopia, the best thing that you would have is coffee. Be it in the mountain or in a big city, they will give time and they will do the best that they can to serve coffee for the community. And that's why the coffee ceremony was the main parts of the Ethiopian social life, especially to the north. Beside that, you would have frankincense and popcorn would be served at the same time. It's not necessarily popcorn, but you can have injera or something to eat with it. And the incense is part of the ritual with the grass on the ground. So there is a ceremonial aspects of the coffee ceremony, which you have seen clearly in one of the hotels where you're staying in Lalibela. And that's very interesting to have coffee in Ethiopia as well. Look.
Our next one, we're going to move on a little bit quicker here. We're running out of time. Freeze this right here. All right. Okay. I'm going to need Monica to help with this story right here. Teddy, this gentleman's name again, what his name was?
You mean the name of this guy?
Yeah, his name of this gentleman right here.
Oh, I forgot his name.
Is it Gitma?
But he was quite popular in 5 minutes.
Okay, y'all see Superfly over here in Ethiopia. So what happened? We went on an adventure because the outfits, you see the green with the white dots on it? That's a traditional outfit from this area where we were. And it's really cool. I should have brought Elijah's. Okay, the reason we met this man is because Elijah said, I want one of those outfits. So Teddy said, okay, I got you. He said, we're going to go find where we can get one of these outfits. So we pull up to this, looks like a cafe type place, and Teddy says something to somebody, and all of a sudden, out comes this man. And he walked out, and it should have been do-dum-dum, do-dum-dum, do-dum-dum. I mean, he walked out and leaned, you be the van, he leans up against the van. And so Teddy says, and you know, something really, and he's like, I guess he was saying, this boy wants to get this outfit. And so he says, okay, I got you. And so he is so cool, but when he walked out, yeah, I'm going to show him how to do Elijah, but when he walked out, all of us on the van said, ooh, at the same time, because he was magnificent. I mean, the whole thing. He was important, and he had mad swag. He just was so incredible. But this is how he assessed Elijah. So I said, doesn't he need his measurements? He said, no, first off, he said, oh, I'll bring it to you at the hotel. Now, he didn't say that to us. He said it to Teddy. But so he looks at Elijah like this. Got you. And that was it. And he showed up at the hotel, and we all went crazy. And what's happening here is they're dancing. And so it was like a dance-off between the younger boy and this incredible man who showed up and blew our minds.
And we'll continue on with the next photo. And then finally, Aksum, we're going to end with that. We're not going to do Dubai. Dubai, y'all seen pictures of Dubai. Stop right here. This is the Church of the Ark of the Covenant. This is where the Ark rests, and the keeper of the Ark, the gentleman, the priest who watches over the Ark, he makes the commitment to watch the Ark for the rest of his life. And he stays in this compound. Now, the group that we were in, the priest didn't come out, but there was, I don't know if anybody was here. You were at the group. He came out and he prayed for you all. The priest prayed for you all. He passed a blessing that they had the opportunity to meet the keeper of the Ark of the Covenant. And so this is the place where it's held, the holiest of holy sites. So the Ark of the Covenant, it's not in Jerusalem. It's in Ethiopia. It's in Ethiopia. Let's go on to the next one. And here's a church that was actually built by Haile Selassie here. And what was interesting to us is it's a beautiful church, but after seeing all of the other churches in Ethiopia, the modern architecture, it was quite funny. Everybody walked in and was like, oh yeah, that's nice. You know, we've been to Lalibela, we've been to Gondar, we've seen the ancient churches. The modern churches just did not impact our spirits the way that these ancient churches impacted our and again, on the inside, we're like, that's nice. And what was interesting, The younger the churches, you would have the lighter icons around. The older, the darker everybody gets. The darker everybody gets in terms of the icons. So it's quite powerful. We're going to stop right there. Again, we want to thank you for coming out tonight. And we want to